US stocks have opened sharply higher. They'd previously failed to rebound from the huge losses on Monday, but most other global equities are languishing. The worry, the long-term outlook for the Chinese economy. The emerging market has long established itself as the globe's main manufacturing base. However, the latest jitters have got some European countries looking closer to home to do business. Components manufacturers to the south in countries like Spain and Portugal could become viable alternatives to suppliers in Asia. The shorter supply routes are not the only advantage.
Cutting-edge technology and features, with as little added to the price tag as possible. To achieve that, manufacturers often squeeze their suppliers. Especially automotive companies do everything to save on procurement and distribute risk. Price is often the decisive factor, and Asian companies often win the contracts. But European companies have started to turn to South Europe as an alternative, especially for smaller purchases. Italy, Spain, and Portugal have been catching up with Asian competitors. Shorter delivery routes, higher quality, and reliability have helped. Many companies in Spain and Portugal developed strong niches as a way to cope with the economic downturn of recent years. These include tool companies, metal processors, and automotive suppliers, like those who work for Seat, Volkswagen's Spanish subsidiary in Barcelona. The car-making industry is among Spain's most important business sectors. It's also the biggest in the EU after Germany. The EU is the most important market for Spain's exporters, with nearly two-thirds of the country's overseas sales. EU sales make up over 70% of Portugal's exports. The supplier network is known for efficiency. The low salaries and high flexibility among suppliers may turn Southern Europe into a preferred partner for Central Europe's manufacturing industries, eventually displacing the Far East.
Let's get a voice from the business world on this. Christoph Feldmann is head of the German Association for Materials Management, Purchasing and Logistics. Nice to have you on the show, Mr. Feldmann. First of all, just how important is China for Germany right now?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ben. Probably, as you have already mentioned in the short spot before, procurement is for companies and for the industry in general very, very important. They spend between 50 to 80% as an average industrial company on procurement. Therefore, it's more important than marketing and sales for the overall company's success. Now, with respect to China, China is a very important purchasing market for the German industry. The motivation has changed in the last years. Originally, it was a search for cost advantage, and now it's to be present in the second biggest market of the world, the biggest economy after the US, and fast growing. And for this, you need to be also present to meet local requirements.
And that motivation has changed, not because of what's happening now, but because China's got too expensive.
China is, if you look for cost advantages, it's not anymore a key attractive market. Within Asia, there are cheaper markets, like, for instance, India or Vietnam. And as you have mentioned in your spot, Eastern Europe and Southern Europe becomes very attractive. It was already before the home base of the German industry in terms of sourcing. So Germany, followed by the European Union, has always been the most important sourcing market. And the reasons for this is cultural closeness, geographic closeness, etc., and the European Union with a safe legal environment. But the countries have in the last years also made their homework, investing in logistical infrastructure and also enhancing competitiveness. For instance, you have now in a country like Portugal, Chinese prices with Central European efficiency. And this is actually the best of both worlds.
But would you say that they are realistic alternatives, considering that some of those southern states are still struggling themselves economically?
I think they are there's true potential, especially if you're looking at small and medium-sized companies, which are actually the core of the German industries, but also in a lot of those countries, they have the biggest economic importance. And the potential of bringing those together is not fully leveraged yet. The BME sees itself as a role of building bridges here and act as a catalyst. And in a crisis environment, if you count on direct investments, it's quite unrealistic logistics, this will not happen. Supply partnerships are possible to be built immediately, and they have immediate impact in terms of employment, but also, if you look economically on it, in balancing trade deficits. And there is already an increase, but this potential is by far not fully leveraged.
Okay, on the topic of building bridges and alternatives to Asia, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Feldmann.
You're very welcome.